I like this. Anyway, nice.
I believe. Oh yeah, there you go. See the hand. See it all. Okay, all right. And welcome to Alchemy 101. I am Halo Marquise, the Jedi Alchemist, the Pharaoh of Frequency, coming to you live from some weird place in the cosmos. And joining me is a very good friend of mine, the man with the golden ticket, man of many faces, depths of unknown origins, Mr. Harry Judge. How you doing, brother?
So good, man. So good. So good. So good to be here.
Always good to see you. Always good to see
you. Yes.
How's everything?
Oh, it's good. Things are good. I'm holding a couple crystal friends right now, so they're joining our party. Excellent. And they're happy to be here too. So I'm just riding their joy right now. It feels good.
Yeah, I love it, man. The vibrations and frequency of everything is like very much at an all-time high. And you know, we talk. So guys, you don't know this. If you don't know Harry, I met Harry at Beloved last year. Which, by the way, I don't know if you got the email or not. They ended up canceling for this year.
It's official.
It's official. I got an email like probably 4 days ago, give or take. And they're still planning the new spot. And if I'm being honest, I think it's kind of a good thing because I know their lease was up at the old place and they were really having a hard time finding a new area. So this will hopefully make them find and give time to create, you know, something even more magical if that's even possible. But yeah, so I met Harry there, right? And now we talk about everything daily, right? And there's just a huge amount of understanding and emotional capacity that he's had that's really helped transform not just the company but my days as well. So that's why I love having him come on and for you guys to be able to see and talk with him and know that there are more of us out there doing this thing, trying to make a good impact, and from everything I can see, it seems to be working very well. Does that sound fair?
It feels fair. I'm watching you because your eyes are going up in the corner. Do you have me up in the corner?
Well, so I've got one screen over here, and so you know how this works. So I've got the Zoom right here, so we're live, so I can actually see it. But the Facebook is over here to the right.
Okay.
So I have to keep looking over here for the messages, and so sometimes, but I still see you. You're just over there.
Yeah. Because when I'm looking at you, and I'm just there, because you're just so you know, you're kind of going over in an angle right now.
Yeah. So like watch. If I do this, watch.
Oh, now we're talking. Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
All right, we'll stay there. All right, guys. Look, awesome. This man is a professional. Harry also does some acting. We don't have to get into all that. But obviously, this man's a professional. He's making sure I get the cameras right, guys. So see, daily, we're finding ways to improve. And that's
because the people are watching you. They're going to want to be like, I want to see this man's eyes. I want to see into these eyes. There's a lot in there.
There is, man. So, yourself. There's you know, every morning I go through my little like prepping myself up and talking dirty and everything, and you know, I get lost in them sometimes myself, going, this is not a reason to go outside today, and then I laugh about it, and it's great, man. It's like a good overall idealism and trajectory of just being happy and fun throughout everything. You know, it's good. Like I don't want to get into the whole over scare of it, but you know, I've worn my mask out a couple times with the ninja one over it and everything just to mess with people when I'm out, and I was like, yo, that's so cool. I'm like, this is what we do at festivals. You can do this type of stuff all the time. And it's interesting to carry yourself in just a way of just trying to lighten everything. Like it's really fun, and I think it's empowering. And I think right now so many people are finding out that they have this power for themselves because a lot of people aren't having the option to do anything but sit with this and sit with themselves.
And it feels almost like the compression is going to make people want to turn the world into a festival.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the thing is you're going out and you're wearing this thing that you would normally just have on those times, but people are starting to shake off this sense of like, I got to be and look a certain way and just feel like I want to just, it's shifting things. And it's, I think, snapped people out of like, what is the routine of, you know, maybe it's possible that as people are having a new normal pushed upon them, they want to reinvent what normal is for themselves.
Yeah. And so with that being said, you know, and again, we'll talk about this another time, but we're working on a couple of different designs for Mistec to embrace that exact idea. And I'm going to do everything I can in our marketing for it to really draw that line of, hey guys, this is not for this reason, but if this is going to be the norm right now, let's run with it and really use it as a transformational thing to embrace what really makes us comfortable. And so it is very interesting to see how many different parts of the system we seem so reliant on that just literally evaporated. And now people are not even scrambling, that it seems to be like a lot of good consideration of what is next. And, and that's up to us to do that. So you've got the thinkers and the action takers, and we've been able to find this good synergy of what the future looks like. So it's World Fest is just a couple steps away. It's good.
You know, when you first started talking about like talking dirty to yourself in the morning, and I was going to say, it's fun when you talk dirty to yourself and then you surprise yourself. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. Like, oh, I didn't even know I could talk like that.
And so,
what was in my water this morning?
Yeah. We just stay in the bathroom. Honey, you okay in there? Oh yeah, I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
But then there's this thought.
Jeanette's used to it. Like there's a lot of things, like we'll get visitors and they're not used to this stuff, and then she has, oh, it's fine. He does this all the time. Like it's a good time. Good time.
Well, and I bring that back just to say that people might be surprised at their own impulses now, especially people who really, this may be the first time that they've had to spend a lot of time by themselves. And this is maybe the first time that they're thinking about like, well, what's here? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? What are these, I have a friend right now who very much the result of her isolation is like, she's birthing. And she's acknowledged that she wouldn't have been going through this process had she still been going out, the usual distractions, going to bars or drinking or whatever, the usual routines, the internet, like the stuff that would normally have occupied her. Now it's actually turned, and it became a gestation period for the real her to start to sprout out. And so this has shifted her, and she's not the only one. And so it's beginning this whole, so really you don't have to look far to see how what is happening is serving a much bigger movement. And it's fair that there's reasons to be concerned over a lot of stuff, but there's a whole lot of reasons to be celebrating and to be really tuning in to go, what is my new power right now? What's being birthed, being banked, being ready to be expressed. And so whether it's the new Mistec designs on your mask, or whether it's a new way of being, or a new way of looking, a new way of seeing, like all of that's possible now.
Yeah, I love it. And I think like the trajectory we're seeing right now, since this whole thing like started, aside from like the initial panic and fear, like it seemed like to have this kind of weird crescendo and trajectory, and like almost daily, just from what I'm seeing on social media, the conversation I'm having with people, like you can really see this like is increasing daily on a mass scale. And I'm even having friends of mine from like high school that used to give me so much crap about how I talk and think and all these things, that are now like, yo man, so tell me more about this wizarding thing. Like, tell me about alchemy. Like, how can I meditate? And it's interesting because you can see the previous fear of diving into the unknown. It's now been overshadowed by this other fear of something that's even more unknown. And this seems like to be a release. So people are like, okay, well, I don't know what to do about that. So it's scary, but this maybe you can tell me something. And so and then the follow-up afterwards has been exceptional, man. So many people are like, man, this is, and like, I'm just meditating for 5 minutes a day and it's changing everything for me. And so it's really interesting to see how it's all unfolding. And, without getting too much into it right now, but it's so exciting with Mistec to see and feel like we're a big part of why that's happening. Like the mass consciousness is very real. And, like we mentioned, we had our biggest month in a decade.
Yes.
That's so crazy in the middle of times. Like, I don't even know how that's thing, but again, I think it's because people are home and they have no other option but to look into things and to research and to consider and talk with people. And people are finding out like there might actually be something to this. And, when I was up in Canada with you and, we had the blood test video, the other thing, like that just really solidified for so many people what they were too scared to consider before. So it's really exciting, man.
A friend showed a family member that blood test video, and he was just like, just show me 10 more of those. I just want to see that. Like, that's so fascinating. I want to see that again and again and again. And the results would be similar if you saw it with a lot of people, but that is something. It's really seeing something tangible, which we have felt, which we know, but to really see it played out. And I think you're right in the sense that it is an opportunity to, whether people have the time or the desire to really sit with something and go, what is this? What is frequency?
Yeah.
What is a frequency? What is it's we're already, whether they're learning about what a frequency is or what it could be for them. Like, you're right that I think the education opportunity is huge, but it's not just that. It's not just learning new information. It's that there's a shift now in what actually you're able to hear and receive. So we can speak to you, but depending on what you're tuned to hear, you may hear it or not. And back in 2012, it was so much talk about ascension and so much talk about a great awakening and so much talk about there's a big movement happening, this grand shift. And that's been, and there's even movies made about the shift and all these kind of, it's been spoken about for a long time. And so at the beginning of this, people in social media were making certain videos of like, the great awakening is upon us. And I sort of took those with a grain of salt. I felt a little bit like I've been down this road before. I used to get these energy updates from people who were really tuned in and they're like, it's happening. This is it. It's happening. It's coming. Here it comes. It's coming. And that would happen for months. And finally you get tired of that messaging. They're like, okay, well, I'm starting to lose faith that there's a shift. I'm starting to lose faith that this awakening is actually going to happen, or is it happening and I missed it, or is it happening and no one knows? But there's something different now.
Yeah.
That it does feel like the awakening, which has been perhaps on a more individual scale, is great now, both in scope and in size. So like how much of an awakening is happening? Like, it's not just like I'm being roused a little bit and I'm kind of learning a bit more, but it's like tops are being blown off and they're being blown off all over the place.
Yeah.
So we really need to think about, so the people who've been working on their awakening for a long time, I want to encourage everybody now to really look again with new eyes at the people around you, because there's going to be people who are around you now that are more able to hear the things that maybe you've always been wanting to say, or maybe the things that you've said for a while and you just kind of thought, oh, maybe people aren't quite interested, or you got a little resistance on. See people new now, because there are people who are wanting to hear, who are looking for answers, who are wanting to hear the message. And so it's a time to kind of renew the the sense of like
the age of the Phoenix, the age of the Phoenix, renewal. I agree.
To renew the sense that there is a purpose, because a lot of let's say light workers, people who've been here for a long time, there's fatigue. Am I just here to hold a vibration? Am I just here to balance? Am I just here when I feel like there's something more? And now that time is there for possibly more of that, to not just kind of shine in isolation, to shine with the shades drawn, but really actually to open up the curtains at your front window and let that light really be bright so people can find you. Because people are looking. Yeah.
You become that beacon. It's when you say that, I made a meme last night with that little pun dog, right? That says one thing, another thing, and its mouth's like wide open. And I said, sometimes I like to sit in the darkness, or sometimes to sit in a room with all the lights off so I can feel like the light in the darkness. Light in the darkness. But it's really interesting that you say that, because listen, when you're out and doing these things before, and what you're talking about when people cannot see or hear these things, that beacon that you're carrying with you, people could not see that before.
No.
They were not in that wavelength. So I'm talking about being that light in the darkness. That's how it was before, when you're going out in the light, because they're not seeing all the darkness because of the blinders being on. They're not seeing that. Now that people can see the darkness of what is like, the systems are not there, they're being drawn to the beacons of people that have been trying to speak and talk about this truth for as long as they have. And I think it's really important that we all acknowledge each other for that new level of understanding for so many people, because so many people I've talked to over the years, even myself, it's difficult to go through this life feeling isolated and alone and not being able to talk to friends and family about these things, all the while knowing like this is as real as 2 + 2 is 4, but I can't get them to do the math. Like it's weird. And now that people are being able to see that now, like, dude, I was at Albertsons that I've been going to for years, and I always have my lightsaber with me, right? And the woman looked at me. She's like, "Is that really a lightsaber?" I was like, "Oh yeah." And I didn't have it the first day, but I was talking to her about it and showing her videos, and then so I brought it back the next time, and she was like, "Oh my god, that's so cool! Oh, I wish I could do these kind of things." I'm like, but you can, like, go do these things." And it's one of those things that before I've been wearing this for years, going there. She never saw it, or she didn't have the resonance to acknowledge it or talk about it or anything. So I think the shift is really, really huge. And also really quick in Facebook, we got a couple things. Jason the Wizard, my good guy. I got to get you guys on a conference call soon. This guy's making the Mistec orgon generators and everything. And he's one of my oldest cosmic friends from lifetimes. Like this he's amazing. You have to talk to him. And he was mentioning
hi Jason.
Harry says hello. Obviously, I said small scale small scale metronome humming and resonating are more and more together, and I think that is what's happening. And that's that universe thing, you being a song, and now there's more harmony that's coming in, so people are able to get in that same like wavelength and ride that really, really through.
And I love that he put that out there and that you're sharing it, because now we're talking about the sense of not just harmony but symphony, right?
Yeah.
That there are that these rhythms that are beginning to align can be of different amplitudes and different frequencies, but they're all making the music together.
Right.
And so it feels like we're getting concert now.
Yeah.
More and more people.
I love it. So it's so amazing. No, I'm going to ask you something, because I realize I keep meaning to ask like my different energetic friends this, and I keep forgetting to. And you've brought it up two different ways right now while this new like great awakening is happening. And I just want to know if you've been feeling this as well. So from people talking about it, and I didn't really realize it was all happening at the same time until somebody mentioned this. Have you been feeling like more drained than usual? Like really like excited about what's going on, but just feel some other like strain or weight or something? Or are you in the other part of the wave? Because I'm seeing two ends of the spectrum.
If we're talking kind of body, mind, soul, right? Yeah. Like if we're talking physical, emotional,
more physical,
or spiritual, physical and emotional, mental, shattered.
Yeah.
Spiritually, there's been this like, it's just been this upswell. It's like this energy is like, it's been priming. It's just like, it's here, but the rest of my system, the rest of the bodies have just been hanging on. Yeah. There's been so much emotion moving, so much challenge, and the spirit's like, it's like, yeah, keep bringing it, because this is all clarifying, this is all purging, this is all part of it. But the rest of the systems have just been like wrung out. So yes, absolutely.
Like literally every person I know that I've spoken with about this right now has felt this like physical drainage, and the mental is not even necessarily that's drained. It just feels like there's some new clutter that's happening, but spiritually everything feels really, really good and feels like it's in alignment
and ripe.
And what's interesting is on the other end of that spectrum is all of the like the newbies to this, they all seem to be skyrocketing through all of these things. Yeah. So I think it's like a really interesting alchemic balance that's happening, as like we've been doing this whole time and holding it, and now other people are like lifting it up, and we're like, wait, no, it should be heavier than this. What's happening? And we're putting this strain on our body of nothing that's there anymore. Like there's more people that are putting this work in into the ether and into this shift into the new golden age. Like it's an incredible feeling, but I think it's really interesting that it literally is one extreme to the other. And almost every person I've talked to, like the same day or in the same part of the day, that's when they feel revitalized and back to normal. And it's interesting to see how many different versions of mass consciousness are really shifting right now. And it's super exciting to watch it.
Well, and I love because you just implied this wave sense, right? So same time of the day where you get the crests and like the crests and troughs of waves.
Right.
So everything is the wave. Everything is the wave.
Of course.
And so it's to now kind of be having such a big one moving through all of us, And so those of us who have kind of been attuned to it for a little bit longer are like feeling the rocks of that. And those people who are kind of maybe just beginning to acknowledge that the ebbs and flows of their life daily are influenced by something bigger. And so sometimes when I have conversations with people and they're talking about some of the challenge that they're having, or some of the tough week or the tough flow, I'm like, well, understand that some of what's going on with you isn't necessarily just your body mind, but we're talking about a cosmic thing. We're talking about a larger influence, whether you want to look at it as astrological, or whether you want to look at it as just simply earth shifting, or even just simply seasonal. There are other influences that affect us through these different ways that we get moved through them. And so it is wild to see now people who are no longer necessarily just being like buffeted by the waves and feeling like, oh, I feel so rough, but are actually getting to ride them.
Yeah.
So they're really flowing and shooting up with those highs. And yeah, some of the crashes are a bit rough, but they're really feeling now this sense of, I'm flying from this. This is what's possible. And if I start to ride this, if I start to recognize that if I move along with this and I allow it to flow through me, and I let go of the resistance and the things that I'm holding on to, that allow from just that pure surrender, now this can move me, and I can actually be empowered by the power of that wave.
Yeah. And I love how you said that too, because I really think it's in that new level of awareness and recognition of the low is equal to the high. And so people that are going through this and actually doing the shadow work and the inner work and everything are, like we've talked about this before, like sitting with the emotion instead of the cause of it, and finding out like, wow, this is actually like a very deeply impacting thing that obviously is going to also push the trajectory of the next peak further along as well.
And so there's great images for that, right? There's whether it's like a skateboard half pipe, and you're going down and to fly up, or whether it's a trampoline, right? So it's down, but if you let go, then that bounce, that reciprocal momentum has the capacity to just fire you up. It's when you go down and like get focused on the down and try and stop yourself.
That actually balance and get hurt and wipe out, and
you're hitting that momentum. That momentum actually gets jammed within you, and there's not the opportunity to actually have that bounce. Abraham Hicks speaks wonderfully about this, about taking that vibrational bounce. So the contrast, making the most of the contrast. So the contrast is that bounce now, and then allowing yourself to let go and receive the benefit of the energetic response, which is a swing the other way, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So,
and the law of momentum. I mean, that's a very, very real thing, dude. I love it. It's perfect. And sorry, really quick, I give a shout. My lovely demon wife Jeanette says, "Hello, handsome beings," with a bunch of lovey hearts. She's so
with an us, a plural. Oh, thank you, Jeanette.
Oh, she's wonderful, dude. And literally, what we're talking about, I had to pull it up. I didn't want to say it wrong. No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell, and that's C.G. Jung.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You think about it again, and we've done. I think I did a couple even episodes about this, and part of the order of alchemy, like that root chakra, the path of Gaia, is about we are plants, and if you consider yourself this way, like, if you put yourself in the mindset of how you consider any of these natural things, the deeper the roots, the higher it goes. The more natural growth that it's allowed, the more freedom it will have to go. And nature automatically lives in symbiosis with everything around it. So by it getting bigger and stronger and wider, it's never doing this at the cost of anything else around it. It's doing this and offering more support and everything. And so I think that's like a really important thing right now. As we're having so many different versions of the multiverse collapse on each other and having to spend this time with each other, that we allow that level of tolerance and perspective and self-growth in a supportive way to everybody else. And so I think I'm seeing a lot of that just on the online community as a whole. Like, so many people are reaching out and offering help and consideration, and it's an amazing thing just to see how it transforms. But it is from going through that, Jason says, cycloidal spiral space curve motion. That's the one, that gigantic torus that we're all in. And so the part that feeds to the down is the part that feeds to the up. So we have to be excited about that stuff and enjoy that part of the process and every step of it. And it's interesting because even with Mystic, right? We've seen people have like pain or things like that. When it goes away or these problems go away, they get confused or they get scared because they've got like a level of Stockholm syndrome to this version of the system, or to this version of thinking, or to this version of their pain. And when that's gone, it removes this foundational boundary that, similar to the trampoline, instead of just enjoying it and going with what the trajectory shows, the momentum is, they're looking for, why is that gone now? And now they're creating a whole new issue that's not even there. But it's the lack of control, for lack of a better explanation, that the accountability and responsibility is really, really scary right now, especially with so many unknowns. So the idea of, we've had, our government, or we've had the healthcare, we've had all these different things, we've had the job that we rely on, that we see it kind of shaky, we see it kind of crumbly, and then we see it's where like maybe it's not even there at all. And so many people, again, are so used to this like codependency, and I do it too. We all have it in different degrees, but with this codependency gone, what am I capable of? And it just matters how much time the people will sit with that. And then I'm telling you, that's what I think what we're talking about right now is, once people get to that very low spot where there's nothing else to think about, or where they have to take some type of action, people are finding out what they're capable of, and they're finding out it's so much more than they ever realized. So they're taking it and they're running with it. And so this is why it's so important that we really exercise this tolerance I'm talking about, because you don't want to be the reason that someone else that's going through this transformational time goes back to their fear and goes back to making themselves stressed out and getting sick. You want to help these and offer more trampolines, right?
I'm really receiving this kind of like sense of this tree image that you're offering, that the height is dependent on the depth. And for a lot of my early experience with this, like with my journey, such as it was, of waking up a bit, there's a book that I've been working through, and he says, little diversion, he's like, he has a suspicion that at the end, when he finally kind of clears all the charge that's integrated in his system, he's and finally feels like, enlightened or whatever, that people are going to look at him, he's going to be like the last one. And sometimes I have these ideas that like, oh yeah, I feel like I know a thing or two, and then something will happen and I will be like so taken out at the knees, humbled. Like, how did I think I knew anything about anything? And there is that sense of like, I don't know what I don't know. I have no idea what I'm speaking here from a sense of where I am in this current perspective, but where is that perspective in relation to anything? It's only a little bit different it's only relative compared to where I'm coming from.
Right.
And so speaking of tolerance, right, it's like we have a sense of other people perhaps in different positions, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're above or below or anything about us. Like it's that particular linear perspective that isn't necessarily supportive of our understanding of whether you want to look at it from a multiverse perspective or just an expanded being perspective. These things are not linear. They're not one-dimensional. They are more dimensions than we are meant to perceive right now. And so this feeling of that I have to say, it can be compelling and tempting rather to kind of look at someone in their journey and go, oh yeah, look at them awakening. And then suddenly they'll say something, right? And you're just like, it's something that, it's the new thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, okay, we're going to nurture you along. And then suddenly they just drop a bomb on you from way above. And you're like, thanks for that one. Yeah. So there is this kind of thing of it's not just tolerance, it's like open curiosity and grace and reception of like, thank you for whatever you're about to bless me with.
Dude, listen. Is that what you're saying right now? That bless you. And we talked about this earlier, and I told you it's the new meme of the future, right? Exactly what you're talking about. It says, I need a sugar witch, like a sugar daddy, but they just send me herbs and crystals and potions for being an enthusiastic friend. And I love that, because that literally embodies what we're talking about right now. Because if you're that witchy or that wizard, whatever, that's at home, and you're doing all these things that your full intent, no matter how it's being judged or looked at, your intent is to create this positive impact, this positive wave. That's hard to do without support and cheering and all those things. So what an interesting thing to offer to the witchy women out there. Like, hey, do you want to feel more empowered? Like, send me these things. I would love to have this. And give people the freedom to create whatever healing modality that they want. There's no one way. We have this all these things in the spectrum. And so this is like, dude, we have to figure this out, but we're going to do this experiment where we're going to get like 6 to 10 people at a table, and everyone's going to get one pair of lenses of one color. Yeah. Right. And the teams, whoever can get all the colors together first from interacting and believing what the other person sees, even though they can't see it, that's going to be the team that wins, because we all have those different lenses. We have those different perspectives. They're not ever wrong, but they always create a new version of what reality is.
They're all true.
It's either going to support what we know or it's going to remove it. But we have to have that objective version of how truth continues to unfold. Like there's a old scripture or something that says God is just less science that we understand, and he's getting smaller and smaller. The more science that we understand, the more he goes away. This is like an old Christian thing. And I think that's really interesting, that the idea of all these all-powerful, all these things, well, now we're figuring this out and this out and this out, and it's shrinking this idea of it. But to me, it's actually revealing it to be more so. Just because we're using different terminology doesn't make it not the same thing. So I think it's exciting to see this acceleration of so much growth and so many new things for us as a whole, as a conglomerate, as a being, as a species, that's being more and more confirmed every single day through experience and stories.
There's a couple things I want to pull on here from what you shared. One is the lens. The lens metaphor is vital, and it's such an important experiment. If anyone watching has never actually put colored glasses on, just do it. Do it so that you can immediately, because the power of that metaphor is it can lead to an immediate like recontextualization of what you think you know and what you would presume someone else knows. And how if someone else doesn't see things exactly the way that you do, that means you're wrong or they're wrong, or that opposition results. And it's so important to understand that no matter what lens you're wearing, it's true. The person wearing the yellow lens is what they see. It's true for them. It is 100. It is real. It is true for them. What you see is true for you. We're so quick to invalidate the other.
Right.
Well, no, that's not true, because look what I see. Look what I'm seeing. So whatever you're seeing / feeling can't be true. It's not true. It's wrong. And that just leads to opposition, confrontation, a lack of understanding. And it immediately fractures any opportunity that we have to cultivate what you're suggesting, which is this objective, consensual consensus perspective of what may actually be going on. Meanwhile, if we align together, if we stand side by side, and it's like, what are you seeing through your lens? What am I seeing through my lens? Is it possible for us to potentially trade lenses? Can we information share and gather and align our views so as to gather more information about whatever may be in front of us? This is the opportunity to like take the whole thing further and forward.
Right.
And speaking of that, so the other thing that I wanted to share is, you talked about an enthusiasm and having this enthusiasm for people. And so, okay, so everyone gets it clear. Halo wants gifts. Halo wants crystals. Halo wants incense.
All those things, absolutely. Look, email me halo@mistech.net. Yeah. I'll send it down. I'm not even joking about it. I need all those things. We
okay, so that's there. That's done. It's done. The other thing that I want to share is this sense of, so the enthusiasm. Anyone who's ever had improv training before, like theatrical improv training, knows this idea of that if you ever say no to someone in an improv, it just kills it. It's like it's the end of the improv. It's really about saying yes to the offer. Yes, and. So it's like yes, and. And so that's the encouragement for really anything that may be coming forward from someone, is just like acknowledging the validity of what their current journey is. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you say yes and with everyone expectantly, but energetically that perception can be there, where it's like there may be something birthing from this particular tree or rose bush. You had a really amazing analogy earlier today, and it's like, yes, and where do you want to go next?
Yeah.
And so that's the opportunity that we have too, as people who are enthusiastic about the growth and development of anyone else around us, including ourselves, going, and this openness, this freedom, can like facilitating that next step.
And dude, I love that. So I'm gonna piggyback on those two things, and I'd love to talk about the rose bush. I think that's a beautiful thing. But one of the things that you said, I love this thing I did improv. Like, I don't know, we never even talked about this. I acted a couple times when I was like, I was Aladdin. I did the whole everything. Like, it was a good time. But improv is one of my
not the genie.
No, but that was before I had all this. And back then, like I was the only, like I was the first like teenager in my choir that knew how to go into their falsetto. So because of that, they made me Aladdin to sing the song. And it was really embarrassing the first time that they had me come up in front of the whole class as far as comfortable doing other things and made me switch into that. I'm like, it was terrifying. But then I got to be
Aladdin. How old were you?
Probably 14, maybe 14, 15. That's great. But so what I like about it, and this is what I think was important, what you just said, and what my takeaway was, is with improv is always about using whatever is previously there to create the next thing. So you know me, we talk about this a lot. And anyone that's out there, whether you're on Artist First or on Facebook, and if you are on Facebook, I'd love for you guys to chime in on this. I truly believe that we are divine beings on this multiversal plane to create. And that is the only thing we're here, whatever version that is, that's what we're here for. So when you're talking about improv, I'm seeing this analogy as saying yes, and this gives the opportunity of harmonized creation. But the moment you say no, that immediately stops any opportunity for creation. And I think this is with one of my personal things I'm working through all the time, is that's why I have a difficult time with some conversations, is the only version of anything correct I can see is whatever's creating this next amazing, beautiful thing. And if it's not that, it like there's something about my being that it really does not. It's disharmonic. You know what I mean?
Totally. And in fairness, we are we navigate our reality through a shared understanding of symbols and of the identification of what that is. And so if someone is taught, okay, this is what a chimichanga is, that's what they're going to understand that to be. And that's how they're going to orient that. So then they know, this is what I want. I want a chimichanga, and this is the thing they expect. And so it's how we understand preference. It's how we understand choice by our experience with symbols as they come to us, as we're taught. That's what they are. So if you're going to be the chef that night, and someone orders a chimichanga, and you have a creative impulse, and you've got, well, this is what all these ingredients are the same things are going to be there. I'm going to make it a little slightly different way. Maybe I'm going to like shape it differently or whatever. And you deliver it to someone and like, well, but I ordered a chimichanga, and you're like, yeah, but this is what that is. And it's in fairness to the person who's received that order.
Right.
They've got a particular expectation in mind, and they're doing so because they're actually looking after their best interests. They're doing what they think is the right thing for themselves, to either be safe or to be happy or to be whatever. So really wanting to find that balance of going, we are all kind of navigating through this experience equipped with our understanding of what we're navigating via the symbols, because we understand a red stop sign means that, or a green light means. So if we're in an environment right now where perhaps we're offering different interpretations of symbols or different ideas, it's understanding that may take a bit of time for people to wrap their heads around and go, okay, I don't have to be afraid of that. I can be open to what that new thing could be. I can allow for the world and for the symbols to keep evolving. Right.
And dude, I like how you said the stop sign, because going back to this lens thing, right? So if you're colorblind and you can't see the color green, that can make driving really, really difficult. But if you're with someone that can see green and you know that, and again, you're looking, again, to me, and I did a whole show on this, you'll always see what you're looking for, right? So that guy that ordered the chimichanga, if he knows that this is like the most renowned chef and everything, and he's looking for the world's best chimichanga, he's not going to question no matter what he brings him, even if it doesn't look like it, because he's looking for that. And and the analogy I used before was, if your neighbor's growing a garden and you show up with a big bag of shit, if they think that you're just giving them shit, they might get really upset. But your intention is to give them fertilizer. And if they're looking for, how is he trying to help me? They're not going to see this. They're going to see this amazing thing. So that's what I mean. We have to look for, how is what this person doing something that can help me? And how is what I'm doing something that can benefit everybody else? That's a simple symbiotic relationship. And
my old childhood was in, I just totally assumed everything that I was taught about what was real and true, and would vociferously defend that because that's what I understood to make my reality safe and stable.
That's a cognitive dissonance, right? I think that's what that's called, cognitive dissonance. That's what that is when someone challenges something that's a foundational viewpoint that creates fear of a system of you don't know what to do without it. So your brain will fight it and hang on to it because the idea of that structure crumbling is the foundation of so many other things.
Yeah, it's happening to me all the time.
Yeah,
it's happening all the time. You know, the end of a relationship signifies like it's like when we think of what that represents, and so suddenly it's just like we're proposing, oh, but that end is a new beginning, or but that end leads to this possibility. There's this cognitive dissonance that you know you have to get over to really reframe that if we've never learned that that's possible.
Right.
If what we've been taught is, well, the end of this is failure. An end of a relationship signifies failure. It signifies loss. It represents lack of something, lack of love, lack of whatever. Then it can be challenging to these deep seated, programmed, old, fundamental threads within this system of us. It's like, but these things this is what's all teaching me all this. So it's like to actually begin to pull those threads out. It's like pulling fucking stitches out. Pardon the language, it's there's an actual visceral feeling when that's going on, when that's energetically like I'm taking this out. And there's a terror in that. Why? Because that thread may be in the thing that's stitched up in the energetic wound. Right.
Brother, and look.
So it's like, wait a minute, if I pull this thread out now, I'm going to be gaping. I'm going to be wide open and vulnerable. I need to keep that close. Don't tug on that thread. In fact, I need to make sure this situation, this relationship stays so as to keep this wound from being reopened. What we don't know is that actually maybe this is the opportunity for it to heal properly. Maybe this is the opportunity for us to find out, oh, there's a different way now. There's a different possibility.
Yeah. And it healed with these scars and with these bacteria still there and everything. And again, like we talked about a misstep, if your arm was broken, it heals wrong, you have to re-break it to get fixed in the first place. And really quick, I want to give a shout out Marina Wolf.
Yes, Marina.
Yeah, beautiful insight. She said taking on their viewpoint in conversations, great way to understand the bigger picture. Learning from someone who holds a completely different view of something can also be informative, helps you with your own understanding, and there's limitless ways of observing the same thing through an infinite amount of lenses. Beautifully worded. Like, I thank you, Marina Wolf. Awesome. Very, very good. And Dasha Love, really good friend of mine. I got to connect you guys to Girl with the Buddha Tattoo. She has this awesome book, dude. Dasha says every end is a new beginning, fresh start, new opportunity, limitless life. And that's what I meant. That's that Phoenix age. That's that plant. That's all there. And that's the thing is there's not really an end. The end is always fuel for the next thing. So that's another point of view we have to get to. And you said two things that I was like, dude, I'm working on a meme, guys. I'm always working on these things, but I don't always. I try to get it not too wordy. So I'm how you said this. I think the difference between thinking and programming is thinking allows for an expansive response. Program literally repeats the exact same cycle over and over and over until it gets an error. So this is what I'm working on. I'm going to picture one of those old school calculators that says error because you did 9999999 times 9 and it doesn't have the capacity to give you the answer. So it gives you an error. But as soon as you get a more advanced calculator that has the memory, the capacity, and processing power, this equation is no longer an error. But this other thing can only do the programs it has available. And it's not that it's wrong. It just does not have the capacity to do this. And it's not its own fault.
Yes.
But now that we know, well, this is, and that's the other thing that I personally, I think I was very fortunate because I don't have this like perfection idea of we all are terrible at everything. We're always figuring everything out. Always. It's always an improvement. Like even the things that I feel like I've mastered is the mastery is, and I know this much so far, there's more. So being vulnerable and making yourself open and like you're talking about and literally removing this program, like you're pulling the program out. Then once the program's gone, guess what's attached to the end of that? You are. Like you seen the first Iron Man? You ever see the first Iron Man?
Come on.
Okay, so look. Do you remember? And it's funny because oh man, perfect segue. This is beautiful. When he has Gwyneth Paltrow go to pull the thing out of his chest, right? And she pulls too far and pulls the whole thing. I was like, oh, that was too much. And watch, he starts freaking out because he feels like he's dying, but he does not say to put that old piece of crap back in. He puts in the new one, and what happened? Whoa! And now he's completely revitalized with something that's limitless power. This is what we have at our disposal all the time. And it's interesting that it's Gwyneth Paltrow, because earlier when you're talking about a relationship, whatever, can seem like it's failed, I'm pretty sure it was her talking about when her and her husband got divorced. It wasn't a failed marriage. It was a successful marriage up until that point. And at that point, it no longer made sense for them to trap each other in their versions of what was important. But everything up until that point was very successful and very enjoyable, and they're still very good friends now. And I think that's another one of those things that we all deal with, this ideal of loss of things that we don't even have. Like if you've had a
and that's cultural.
Yeah.
And that's cultural as much as anything.
Yeah.
That's really, thank you. Because I was feeling when you said yourself that you feel lucky that you're not trapped in the sense of perfection of like, oh, I heard that and I'm like, well, I can't claim the same thing. I absolutely
so maybe I should
actively recovering perfectionist.
So maybe I should reword that, because I'm definitely a perfectionist. That's what I strive for, but I do it with the understanding that it's not realistic, but it's right. A good counterbalance to keep that momentum for me. Like I'm going to improve this. It's never going to be perfect, but practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So you have to always refine what you're practicing to make improvements, or you're not going to improve.
I intellectually get that it's not possible. I intellectually get that it's a failed effort, but
right.
But viscerally, no. Viscerally, I really fundamentally believe that not only my happiness, but me receiving love, i.e., me surviving, because it's like as a child, it's like, how did I get love? By approval, by being perfect. But when love meant life,
right.
So to me, that causal link chain exists. It's that if I scale it back, it does mean if I get something right, then I will get approval, I'll get liked, I'll be loved, I'll live. And so viscerally, I'm really tracking that. And so it was important for you to give that Iron Man analogy of going, okay, so it's okay for me to have this visceral disconnect where that program can be removed, and it's going to feel like it's taking all of me with it, but it doesn't have to. And in fact, whatever it takes with it is no longer needed. It's maybe a piece of me or part of me that's just no longer required. And so, because there is that feeling of like, but if there's this hole here where that understanding was, what will fill it? What will be there? And so, this idea that limitless power is exciting.
Yeah. But no, so two things with them. I mean, like when you said that right now, like I'm just, man, I like to be overly transparent. Like hearing what you said, and I know how I talk with my son, and I want to shout, like I might have to sit down and have a different talk with him, because we do have a thing like that. And that's, so thank you, man. That's some self-reflecting I need to do. Like he's amazing, and we have a great relationship. But as you're saying that, like even if you go back and watch this video, I'm sure you'll see the look on my face of like, shit, like I think maybe so I think that's something I'm guilty of as well. And I think this is important to be able to, in real time, like this is what I mean. Like if that's a real thing, I can look at that and go, shit, maybe wow. And I'm saying, man, go back and watch the video. Like I really had a moment there for a second. The other part I want to say, when you're bringing up this Iron Man part of it, this is another thing I think is really important, guys. And when we're talking about this tolerance and uplifting, imagine for a moment when he told her, take this out and put that back in. And when he started freaking out what's she doing? It's going to be okay. Tony, he's like, listen, just do what I say and put it in. If she would have sat there and kept talking and didn't just believe what he said to do, he would have died. So guys, again, when we're talking about what we see is what we see, for all your friends, your family, your kids, your whatever it is, when they're saying this is what I need to live, you have to make sure you're paying attention to that. Because in this exact analogy, if she wasn't listening and thought she knew better and whatever it was, she would have died. And she has an understanding of his business. She takes over it, but still didn't know it to what level and degree of what he was working on, because that was something for him. So he needed to get this removed. He needed help. And as he asked for the help, if that was not offered the exact way that he needed it, that's not help. That's an old analogy when we had a bunch of people in Mistech and people are always helping. And I'm overly appreciative of all the help and support that we have. It's really tremendous. But there's very efficient ways of doing things. And this is something I've got to still work on. But I'm like, guys, I only need triangles. Don't bring me all these shapes and have me sort through them, because it's great you're bringing me all these things, but I just need the triangles. So don't overwork yourself. And I know we can cut this square into 2 triangles and but I just need triangles, because that's what I need. And the moment that people start doing that, our entire company started accelerating. Things started becoming fundamentally easy and paved and effortless because everyone's in the same wavelength of, all right, this is what we're helping to, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the thing. If you're in this time and you're stuck with your friends and your family and they're like, I want this, your only job right now is to go, okay, how do we get it? And there can be caution, there can be worry, there can be concern, but it's still like, how do we get this? Like right now, if I'm like, Harry, you want $1 million? How are we going to get it? I'm going to be like, no, man. Like, even as far as it might sound, like, all right, we should sit and talk about this. Like, that's okay. How do we do it? Like,
How? It's okay. What can I do? How can I help?
Right. In some ways might sound scary and some of that wouldn't be done, but okay. So if that's scary, okay, well, what's another way? And so again, that's what it is how do we get from here to there? Not how do we forget that that's over there, right? And if we're all doing that, if you have something to say, okay, or I can do that rose thing real quick, because that.
No, I do want to kind of jump on something a little bit, please. Which is just your shape of the triangles was an interesting one because it just made me think of engineering and the strength of the triangle, right, and the necessity of that, and you couldn't replace a triangle in a bridge with a rectangle. If the design needs a triangle, right? So it could be like, and what size of triangle do you need? Or and what do you want that triangle to be made out of? And so I think that it's another way of us folding in this energetic yes and as you said, and you always say this when we talk about this, which is like, hey, if you want to offer me a perspective that I may not be seeing, such as like, well, just make sure, and do you have the right gloves to hold that triangle? Because it is sharpened steel. I'm not keeping you from the triangle. I'm going to help you, but I do want to make sure you're going to do it safely. I'm just going to offer this, like, right? So this is yes, and I want you to be aware of this thing, as opposed to no, right? Yep. So it is important. Like, I want to tie it back to what we were sharing earlier. This again, this sort of like openness of possibility, because we don't. As you said, you said Gwyneth didn't know Tony Stark's truth. So for her to just say no at that moment, it wasn't, wouldn't have been appropriate. There just has to be this openness. Yeah. I want to, before you go on to the rose bush, there's a lot of sensitivity there, this vulnerability that you had of going like, I want to have this conversation with Amante. I want to see Amante, yeah. Not Amante. No,
Amante. Yeah.
Have this conversation with Monte and be like, okay. And you know what? What came to me to offer here in this conversation is to be like, should you feel called to have that conversation with him? Ask him. Yeah. Has this been your experience? Yeah. Is this, tell me about how you feel about, like, right? Because even that, in our desire to fix or to make up for or to atone or to, we can, that can be another imposition of an idea on someone. But this inquiry, it's like, how are you? Yeah. What is your experience? I want to know. Yeah. I want to know what I've had this idea that maybe this could be your experience. I want to know, is that true for you? Yeah.
And that's that. And I'm telling you, like, that's what's easy is like, I'm overly transparent. If there's anything that we talk about or do or anything, if it's not in the exact moment, we always go back and this is the why and does this make sense and how does this work for you, and like and so we have that, and that's the thing. But that's something that I hadn't seen. And before I get to the roasting, we got a few minutes, but you just said something else that I really want to kind of touch on when you're talking about like this is a new like perspective to kind of impose or put on, and we talked about this. Was that meme that I saw, and I wanted to point this out to everybody. As I'm talking about, to me, our ultimate job is to create and harmonize with each other, right? That's my goal. That's what I feel is important. That might not be for everybody, all right, and I'm good with that. But no matter where you are on this part of the spectrum, and this is something I'm checking for myself also, is kind of where this Amante thing is coming from, is don't enforce emotional and mental labor onto somebody that's not trying to build the thing that you're trying to build. So if there are certain conversations, ideals, TV shows, music, events that is not for this person's greater good, just you bringing it up, them having to say, I don't want to talk about it, you're now putting that mental and emotional labor that they have to go through, that they would rather be putting that labor into something that they feel is building towards their goal. Yeah. And so this is a huge consideration, guys. Like, I saw this meme and was like, holy crap, like we do put each other through a lot of emotional labor. We put each other through a lot of mental labor. And because we don't get to physically see it like we do with physical labor, we just feel the drain. We don't see the resilience that's built up from this. We don't see the new things that we're having to think about and talk about. And that's a huge, huge piece, guys. Like right now, out of everything that me and Harry have said, to me, this is the most important consideration, because this is something that me and Harry talk about all sorts of things. Guys, there's emails I get from customers that consume me for hours a day. That's a very small thing. That's an easy thing. But because of the wording and the verbiage and again, consideration, care, this is a huge part of labor that goes through that. When everything's said and done, it's like, okay, we did everything we could, but all that time is now evaporated. And it's not that it's not valuable or it's not worth it, but in comparison, like there's not, it's not for the greater good. It's not, it's literally just a drain. So we're looking for things that can catapult us and nourish us, even if it comes to an end. You know, earlier when I'm talking about that fertilizer, like compost is something coming to an end that actually creates the thing. So that's not a thing either. So just make sure whatever your relationship is, even at your job, anything, make sure the conversations that you're having are being, benevolent and divine in the labor that's being put into it. And if it's not, then you're taking away not only from yourself, from the person, but from our mass consciousness of what we're trying to create. Like, I really think that's a huge piece.
Can I take a moment to pull the two messages out of the two things that I'm taking away from what you just shared? Because they're big ones.
Cool.
And so I feel like there's two key things that I'm taking away. One is you talked about the sense of we may want someone to grow or shift or move in a certain way. And we might, do this, watch this, listen to this, think about this. And they are like, I'm not ready for that labor. I'm not ready for that stretch. I'm not ready for that thing. So actually having the humility to kind of recognize when that's so, and then the discernment to go, this is, it's kind of having this open hand thing of possibly acknowledging a thing and allowing someone, trusting that when that person's ready to see the lightsaber, that they will, rather than you whipping it out every time and like pointing it at this woman who maybe wasn't ready to see it. You know what I mean? That would have been a shock. That she wouldn't have been ready for that. I mean, so that's
it wasn't a lightsaber, but yeah. No, beautiful. Yeah,
it was a chimichanga.
Yeah, it was a chimichanga.
So I think that was the first part of what you're sharing. Is that correct?
Love it. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Cool. And then second piece that I took, and first of all, I really feel like you really rocked me with that one. It's just this feeling of going, okay. Like I've done that. I have done that where I felt like, I'm going to want to bring something here that I think is going to be good for a person, or I'm thinking is be good for a thing. And just, rather than really allowing everything to unfold at a more organic, natural pace, and knowing that what might be my sauce isn't going to taste good to someone else.
Right.
So yes to that. And then the second thing I want to share is you also spoke about having a discernment of going, what am I going to actually introduce into someone else's sphere from like basically like a psychic perspective. You talked about sometimes I get an email and the language that's used or the way it's put forward or whatever. It's like have that sense of awareness and personal sort of, not only personal awareness that leads to the potential of extending that awareness to someone else, and the discernment of going, what could be the impact of what comes from me to this person? Right. You said something before about having this, like, it's almost like we have this dotted lines, our psyches, right? Like we only have so much space that we can put in here. So you don't want to take, you want to be, you personally want to be really deliberate about what you put forward into someone else's psychic sphere, because once it's in there, it's there, and then they have to deal with it. They have to go through this labor, this mental labor, this emotional. They can't unhear what you said. They can't unsee what you've shown them. And so what is the responsibility incumbent upon you when you think about what am I going to...
And level of respect for the people around you. Like that's a huge thing.
Yeah. And I'm really curious about this. This is an unanswered question for me, because this idea of like, well, we want to share everything in a relationship. We want to be transparent. I want to share you all that's happening with my experience. And I want to show that I can handle the real. So I want to hear all about your experience. And so, but then we are also taking a lot in to our own individual psychic spaces. And what is there a balance to that? Like, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. It's just it's an inquiry I'm in right now.
So in my experience, and this is a really difficult one because I know even I do it still, and I'm semi-aware of this thing with me. You know, I don't know I'm doing it sometimes, but I try to check myself, and it really gets into that level of humility of not demanding of the unknown. So if you bring someone up and someone says, no, I don't want to talk about that, or you go, hey, you know, never mind, to have the humility to let that go. They're not trying to enforce it on you, and they're not even trying to have that whole thing go through their mind. Because think about that. There's sometimes that when we bring stuff up or talk about it, we're hitting a hornet's nest we don't even realize. And then we're like, oh, never mind. I probably don't want to do that. And if the person doesn't give you the freedom to withdraw that, like you have no idea what version of the timeline that we just stopped from unfolding. Like I'm really, really big on the whole butterfly effect thing. And this one thing created all of this. And if this is not there, and so that's where that level of respect comes in. And so we're just about out of time. I wanna finish up this rose thing. And dude, it's funny you even said something else, because when I get these ideas or I want to go over these things, my wife, dude, she's been with me for 13 years. She knows my worst parts, my best parts, the things that couldn't. She knows these things. So when I get an idea about something, I like to sit and run by as many analogies as I can, right? Yeah. And so I just got done building this amazing garden, and every day it seemed I was getting a new plant. And I was like, all right, no more. That day, her sister just happened to mail her a rose bush. I was like, all right, well, now we've got roses. And so as I'm talking to Jeanette about this, and I'm talking about like tolerance and perspective, I'm like, okay, look. I realized for me, and guys, anyone's out there, again, you're Artist First, Facebook, thank you guys for being with me and Harry. You're having a great time. Yes. And I'm not saying that this is overly definitive. I'm offering this as my perspective, and I'd love to engage with anyone that can help me understand this at a different viewpoint if there is one. But I'm a huge believer, supporter, enthusiast of growth and not change. And I said that to my wife because originally it was going to be like a meme I was going to make. And she's like, okay, what do you mean? Can you elaborate? Yeah. And again, as the universe would have it, synchronistically, oh, you know that rose bush that your sister sent? Shout out Yanira, sister, you know, always Andrew, my guy. Thank you guys. I'm like, listen, so that rose bush outside, if we put it out in the garden along the railing and we just nourish it, we make sure it gets the food it needs, the water, the sunlight, it's going to grow on its own in the directions that it wants. And when it grows too big out of the pot, if it wants to grow up, we can offer support and put it next to the thing so it's got something to go in the direction it wants to go. Yep. That is supporting, nourishing growth. On the other hand, I can drive down Burnside right now and come across a bajillion different rose plants that have been cut into spirals and spheres and shapes. And they look beautiful, sure, but that's not what the rose's natural thing would be. This is someone going, hey, I really like this, but I like it as long as it's what I want it to be. And now they've taken it, they've nurtured it and get it to the spot they want it to be, and then they go in and change it to what their viewpoint is important, but they're not letting that rose bush be itself. They're not nurturing its growth. They're wanting to change it. So I think this is a very important time for growth. And when you're talking about, when you were just giving an explanation, you said something about moving a certain way, right? And that was the other thing, because she was like, well, so what if the person doesn't want to do what you want to do? Like, how do you support them that way? I was like, perfect. So I don't know if we ever talked about this. I used to do hip hop dancing, and I taught it at school once upon a time. I used to go to dance competitions, and I would see, yeah, man. Yeah, I do everything. If you don't sleep, what do you do with infinity? Everything, right? I've done a lot in my 280 some years. It's been wonderful. But so if you can tango, right? And I can. Perfect. But your significant other can only waltz. If they're appreciating what you've been able to create and do what makes you feel free out of respect and consideration, especially at like a performance, they're not going to press their waltz in the middle of your tango and mess up the way that you move so they can feel included. They're going to be on the sidelines cheering for you, holding a camera, making sure, oh, that's my wife. Oh, that's my husband. Look how it's so graceful how they move. And they're appreciating and accepting their ability to move in a way that's not like theirs and still supporting them. So that's what I mean is, as long as we're not stopping the person from moving, then we're supporting them. Those are, I think, really, I think all that aligns with what we're talking about. But I think that's kind of my big takeaway at the end of the day of all this is As long as you're helping growth and movement, you're doing an excellent job.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're still doing an excellent job, but look at what you're being excellent at doing.
Yeah. We don't have, humans aren't rose bushes. We don't have dominion over them. And we want to support the ways they want to express. You really like stopped me today when you shared that analogy. It just, I appreciate that we got to share it again, because it offers a lot of food for thought. Because part of me is like, well, what about this idea of cultivating beauty, and that can be the rose bushes decision. The human has the voice,
right?
So maybe the rose bush can't tell us unless we really listen, because if we really listen, we may hear it,
right?
But this human, if they like, you know what, I want you to trim and shape a little bit of this because I want to try this expression, then we can be part of that. If they are wanting a change,
perfect. That's alignment. Jason said they might learn to tango. And that's exactly what you're saying. Like, if they want that, then great. But then that's what I mean. But if not, then okay, no big deal. But we still can all do these things synergistically, even if they're not going in the same direction, right? As long as we're moving forward, we're growing. Like, that's it. It's a beautiful, simple mathematical equation. Like, and me and math, it's a big deal to me. Yep. But yeah, man, this is awesome, man. This is awesome. Always good having you on.
Yes.
You got any final words? I was going to get in a couple of the new Mystech things and all that, but we'll do that on another show. Guys, just know we got a lot of amazing multiversal things happening right now, and I've never been so excited for.
Yeah, I will say it. I've got a little bit of a inside ear on some of that from Halo, and I want to say, like, it's true. Like, some of the stuff that's coming from Mystech moving forward is next level, and the idea of leveling up is going to become really real really soon. And so that, I just feel I kind of pinch myself. It's like, what happened that got me into Beloved when it did, and got me to here and aligned with Mystech, and now Mystech Canada. Like, it just feels like a lot of magic. And
it is. It's pure magic. Thanks for being a part of it. And so, like he just said it. So if you guys are in Canada, please make sure you go to mystech.ca, not .net. Save yourself some money, save customs, help me support this beautiful man that's up there creating the golden glow. Like, Harry the Golden Ticket, man. Thank you so much. Yeah,
you're welcome. Speaking of golden glow, so if we've launched the site, and our launch sale will be ending on Friday, but there'll be a new sale starting on Friday, which is for the pre-5G bracelet. So if you're in Canada and you're starting to see the 5G towers go up because it's happening, and you want the thing that you can have in advance of that, the pre-5G bracelet is it.
It's amazing.
And Mystech.ca, you'll get a sale on that starting Friday. So do head over there and check that out too.
Awesome. All right, guys, wait. This is Harry Judge. You guys can find him online. Amazing. Check out mystech.ca. This is Halo, your local wizard, alchemist, Pharaoh Frequency. Loving you guys, and I will see you next week. Keep growing. Keep being beautiful. Love you. And then we go.